Well, Robbie, somehow we made it on to the whole world. All three viewers we currently have. It's been a night of struggle. The struggle is real tonight, Robbie.
Hey, this is after a holiday weekend. It's been long. It was a long weekend. You're gonna have to have a little bit of bruises and lumps on the way back. So we forgive us, and we will get better throughout the course of the night as Randall disappears. But I spent my weekend at the lake on Thames Ford Lake and had a nice little time. Actually, we have a family 3-on-3 basketball game that we play each year, and man, my fast twitch muscles haven't moved in a long time, and so every bit of me is sore. Has been sore the last 2 days.
Well, evidently, every bit of me has been uncoordinated and cannot figure out how to work his own equipment, which has been about par for the course today.
So it's Team Davis versus my cousins, the Gentiles, and they're from Chicago, and they come down. They live in Cleveland now. They come down. They all played, intramural basketball in college, and the Davis team. So we played at 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. was the start time. We pushed it back to 10 a.m. It was me, my brother, and my nephew Zach, and we played best out of 15 by ones, and the Davis team threw up more than we scored points. We lost 15-4, and we had 5 throw up breaks. But I'm proud to say I did not throw up. I kept myself in good enough shape to withstand the heat and the instant burst of energy and the drinks the night before, and so it was quite the event.
It sounds like it was an enjoyable time. And part of our issues today, folks, you have to excuse us, on West Coast time, asleep on the beach, Raj Mehta has joined the crew tonight. But at least you have an excuse. You were asleep on the beach in California. I was just asleep on my couch, waiting on the show to start. And really slept through the start of the show. So
we all have vacation brain, I guess. I certainly have it. Right now, I didn't know today was Tuesday. Like, legit. I thought it was Saturday for 4 straight days. And then when it finally was Saturday, I thought it was Sunday. Till the 14th.
Oh, wow. Look at those. Look at that
family time hanging out.
The struggle is real today.
Connection is not awesome, though. I may have to bounce him. I know, dude.
And he's gone again. Robbie, while Raj is getting his camera set, one of the topics we had tonight was Tennessee entered the season, and I think you sent the information, Sporting News or one of the local.
It may have been Lindy's maybe Sporting News, one of those. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was one of those that I saw.
I had Tennessee listed at 56. How did you feel about 56? Because when you first sent it to me, my gut reaction would be, yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I said, that seems about right. Now, it was one of those, magazine preview kind of things to where, it obviously target markets Tennessee fans, and they want you to purchase the magazine to see where 56 ranks against the rest of the SEC and the rest of the region and all that kind of stuff. I did not do that. I will go buy the magazine. I actually like to flip through them and read through them. So I'm still a hands-on reader. I like books in hand. I like magazines in hand. I like the newspaper in hand. And so I will go buy the magazine. The interesting little plug they had, though, and this is what I don't know if we've done it so much on the show as we've done it a lot on our group text, is the kind of the plug-in was Pittsburgh is ranked 22 spots ahead of Tennessee. So many of us think that Pittsburgh is the defining swing game of the season for Tennessee, and so they're ranked preseason 22 slots ahead of Tennessee. Now, I thought that was a little much. My gut reaction was Pittsburgh and Tennessee would be around each other, and I just thought I have Tennessee losing to Pittsburgh, but I thought it was going to be much more of a just ball bounce here and first-year coach, tons of transfers, we're just not prepared kind of issue. But it makes it sound like Pittsburgh's going to be, even in Neyland, is going to be, 3 to 6.
So what I'd seen was Pitt being a small favorite over Tennessee in Neyland, which I assume is probably accurate. The one thing about these magazines, too, I would definitely say that Tennessee is worse than when they went to publication. I've actually wrote a couple, not right, we all know how I write, but compiled some recruiting rankings for some of these magazines. In Pacific, I did Lindy's recruits one year as far as ratings. There was a group effort, a bunch of raters, and my deadline was March 15th. So if they said Tennessee was 56 on March 15th, that indicates to me that they're probably less than 56 since we've had 22 players transfer to the portal.
That's a great point.
So
good inside information there.
Hey, I used to run in that circle. As I said, the proud moment of that career is the last player I ever ranked was Trevor Lawrence. I think I could go out on a high note with that one. I don't need to rank another player the rest of my life. I can just say I was Trevor Lawrence's guy. So,
hey, Randall, since you're in the industry, what is your take on Phil Steele?
Phil is probably the Mel Kiper of the industry. I've always put a lot of respect on Phil Steele because he seems to be a little more thorough. And he actually has control of his magazine. When it's Lindy's and there's another one,
Athlon, yeah.
There's not one guy in control of that publication. It's a publishing house that's using writers from Mississippi for Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And you tend to get my buddy Bill Mayo was actually under a pen name wrote the Athlon Tennessee edition for several years. And when you're a fan of a school writing a preview issue, I think it's tough, Even today, I think Tennessee's, in our group text, I've said I think Tennessee goes 6-6. And I'm on my own. And if I was writing an article, I would probably say they're 6-6. So I don't know if you get the best information. So Phil Steele, I like. Another one I like. Have you guys ever used College Football News, the website?
Yeah.
They definitely have local guys embedded at each school that they get some inside information. While we're there, before we jump,
I think 24/7 Sports does a good job at that too.
They do.
The 24/7 Tennessee site is exceptional. I don't know about other sites, but the 24/7 Tennessee site is exceptional.
I visit a lot of them for basketball recruiting and seeing where the crystal balls are going to land. I mean, especially for basketball, I think they do a really, really good job.
I also I like the guys that run 24/7 now. I never worked for 24/7, but it seems they have the best information. Raj, now you worked for one of the online papers at one point. Did you work for as a contributor?
It was USCFootball.com, which is now a part of CBS, 247. But back in the day, it was Rivals, is what I used to write for.
Right.
And so it's just they make deals across the board, and it seems like every 10 years they switch services, if you will. And right now, I think 247's probably got the most behind them. It's kind of like Bitcoin, it's not the biggest bank. But, they're all pretty valid, if you ask me. It's the good thing about a lot of 247 is they're fairly objective, whereas Rivals and other ones that I've seen of USC are basically fanboys, which is cool. But I like to see other things as well.
Just side note, while we're on, do any of you guys subscribe to the Athletic?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
I truly want to, and
they've got some good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, they just took a lot of talent from the networks and the websites, and
they took like the top beat writers for every NFL team and basically threw a ton of money at them. So that was smart. They knew what they were doing, and seems like they're doing well. It's $4 or $5 a month, I think. So,
what's up, James?
I enjoy it.
I can only speak to Tennessee. At one point, the Tennessee one was Inside Tennessee. Then it went to Vols Quest, which that's when I did most of my work. And then now I am a subscriber. Even though I got buddies at the other website, I subscribe to 247. So before we get off this subject, again, everybody, we were about 30 minutes late starting. We had some technical issues. We've got cast spread over 3,000 miles and maybe a couple of headaches today. What did you think of that Lindy's marathons at Tennessee at 56? Does that seem high to you, or does that seem on the money? Roger, how do you feel about 56?
Oh, sorry, I was going to pull it up. It was the Lindy's top 100?
We don't know which one it was.
Okay.
It could have just been me spewing off random assertions. I saw it somewhere.
What other teams are around them? Because I see Tennessee as a 4-win team. And that's 4 probably against those non-conference patsies, except for Pitt. I think Vandy may beat them as well. And then again, they may drop one to Bowling Green, who's actually usually a solid team out of the MAC. But our 4-win teams, traditionally 4 to 5-win teams, roughly 56, I think that's a bit high ranking wise, but I want to know what other teams are around them.
That's interesting. I think I could provide that through another website. So let's pull that up real fast. Here we go. There were 56 in Athlon. As Robbie said, Pitt's 22 spots in front of them. They are ranked higher than South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Kentucky is near them. I think the SEC East is so trashy. Here's one. They have Pitt at 44, Alabama at 1, Georgia at 5, Texas A&M at 6, Florida at 7.
Florida at 7. That's crazy high.
Excuse me. I misspoke. It's 11, but still, I think that's crazy high.
Oh, yes, it is too. Florida's a borderline top 25 team, in my opinion.
I would tend to agree with you. I think
so. That must have been the article that I saw, because it went. That's who Tennessee was ranked and who they played. Yes, that's the thing I saw.
Okay, that was from Athlons.
So I'm looking at CBS right now, and oddly enough, they have. I'm tending to agree with Oklahoma is the preseason favorite, just with everything they're bringing back. Tennessee's the transfers they got from you guys are basically all your players. Bama with new quarterback, OSU new quarterback, Clemson new quarterback, and then they have Notre Dame ahead of OU, which I find surprising. Incidentally, they had UK at 50, Ole Miss at 51, LSU at 52, which seems a bit low just considering the talent and you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the big Bayou down there. I'm looking for Tennessee. I see Air Force, and now I'm into the 70s. Arkansas is at 70. Let's see, how low do I have to go to find Tennessee? There they are, 89. Projected at 3-7.
I will take Tennessee over 89 all day, just because there's more talent there than I mean, just James Marshall. I'm glad you're a homer with me. I said 6 minutes. Everyone, all 55 players left on the roster, and that's me guessing. But I would say there's no more than 70 players on the roster. We're recruited by everyone else. I would think the SEC is such a train wreck. I still think Tennessee's better than Vanderbilt and South Carolina. And
who's going to be the starting quarterback?
I would think it'd be Harrison Bailey, or the transfer is going into the season. Hayden Hooker or Harrison Bailey. Well, we've spent more time on Tennessee than I planned on. So, moving on from the Vols, I want to talk about someone, and especially Raj, I would like to get your opinion and everyone's to this effect. We lost a coach, and you don't realize how bad the flip of the wheel just fell off. You don't realize how bad UCLA's been the last 30 years, except for the run that Terry Donahue put together. He died this week. A tragic loss. Someone I actually met one time in my life. He went at UCLA. His career record was he won 5 Pac-10 championships, 2 Pac-10 Coaches of the Year. His career record was 151 and 74. And you look around at UCLA periods when Terry Donahue hadn't been the coach, Rick Neal Heisel, the current trash they got now. Is he the best coach that's been at UCLA in the last 50 years? He made them relative for a long period of time. What do you think, Raj? We'll come to you, Robbie, next.
I mean, there's no doubt he's revered there. He's the John Wooden, obviously on a lower scale, to the football program at UCLA. He also had I'm trying to remember his record against USC. I was researching it. They had some bad blood.
10-9-1.
I always 10-9-1. That's brutal. And mainly because much of his rivalry, he coached during the 90s, and USC versus UCLA in the 90s was a boat race, and not in a good way. But yeah, just a well-coached team. I think people forget that the 1998 UCLA team was loaded, and they were scheduled to play Miami in Game 2. Okay, McNown, J.J. Stokes, I believe, good defense. Hurricane Andrew or something hit, and they pushed back, and they would have crushed Miami at that point. They ended up pushing that game back to end of November, I believe. And by then, Miami had kind of put it together, and they managed to barely beat UCLA. And UCLA ended up losing their bowl game, but they were number 3 in the country at that time. Probably would have been number 1. I think that might have been a Bob Toledo team, but Toledo took over right after Terry Donahue, and nothing changed under that. Then pretty soon people realized that it's Bob Toledo and not Terry Donahue, and he was fired. But all those guys were recruited by Donahue. They made the Rose Bowl. I remember they made an 85, I believe, against Iowa. 45-28. Eric Ball went off. But that's their home stadium as well, so that's always been kind of weird. But yeah, he is. When you think of UCLA football, you think of Terry Donahue. It's a fact.
He went to 3 Rose Bowls out of 4 in a period in the 80s. And yes, he was gone from UCLA in 98. but that team was largely recruited by him and was ranked number 1, I believe it was, when they lost, or number 2, because they moved the game to the championship Saturday. Tennessee was ranked 4 entering that. UCLA and Kansas State both lost. They got Tennessee in the national championship game that weekend. Trust me.
Against the Florida State team with a third-string quarterback. So if those two things don't happen, you may look at Tennessee not winning that national championship.
I clearly thought Kansas State was the best team that year.
Yeah, I did too. That would have changed Bill Snyder's legacy completely.
You would flip Bill Snyder's legacy and Philip Fulmer's legacy. Both won a ton. The only difference is Fulmer won a championship. Snyder didn't. Is UCLA still a viable football program? Robbie, let's hear about you and Terry Donahue first. I want your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so this is the most research I think I've done for this show. So, admittedly, I heard of his passing and the name rang a bell, but I was 11 when he retired from coaching, and even though my sister was getting her PhD at UCLA, but UCLA has always been the basketball program. But I remember UCLA being good. But I just didn't remember who the coach was. And looking back on the coaches and the Wikipedia page and looking through UCLA football, man, what a overall dumpster fire for a team that plays in, I mean, the most famous stadium in college football. And even though it's not on campus, it's still an iconic venue. And you look at, Doral and Neuheisel, now Chip Kelly, and that was the only consistent. When you had Dick Vermeil, who was there for a year, won some, and then moved on.
Terrell was a rough one for them.
Oh yeah, and it's just like, it's amazing that they haven't had more success, and so like I think, well, one, I'm shocked that a coach from UCLA has the Pac-10, Pac-12 wins title. That's impressive. And the first coach to win 7 bowl games in a row. It makes me want to go back and even look at more is where he ranks in the Pac-12 coaches. Based on what I've seen, he's definitely the best coach in UCLA history, football-wise, obviously, the John Wooden. But that's an impressive resume at that school, competing with the other school that's in the same city that dominates the football talk there.
Go ahead. I was just saying, John Robinson, the first time around with 76-82, pretty much owned Donahue. When he came back in the 90s, it was a different story. But John Robinson always talked about how classy Terry Donahue was, how he had things in the right perspective when it comes to football versus life and kids' development and academics. He was a quote machine. I was just reading some of his quotes. Just was very lighthearted. One of my favorites is, "I'm really calm, we're prepared, and we've worked hard. So there's nothing to worry about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go to the bathroom and throw up." And just, and that was him in a nutshell. At the right time. That's me
before every trial.
Exactly. Lighthearted, humorous. He was once asked, if he would be coaching 30 years, what would that mean? He said, I'd be happy to make it 30 months in this job. And this is a guy that was born and bred UCLA as well. He played football at UCLA. It was his dream to coach that team. And he also retired at 51, and that's a very young age. So he could have really blown up those conference records. And who knows the trajectory of Pac-12 and UCLA at that time, like you guys alluded towards, if he would have stuck around.
Terry Donahue also was, again, we always talk about him being older. UCLA, he hit the conference at the right time. He hit the conference at a point that USC had just went through a real winning period with John McKay. There were no There were no, I mean, I guess Washington was the football power in the Pac-10, Pac-8, I guess, back then. But it was a really interesting time. UCLA and Tennessee would play a home-and-home series every 4 years. So I guess that's the reason I fell in love with Terry Donahue.
Real quick, how many years does Chip Kelly have left to prove himself?
I've always said that UCLA is my second favorite team, and they are. And I think this is the year they get him. I mean, good Lord. He did improve last year, but it gets – one thing about Chip Kelly football, when they lose big. It's not 28-21. It's 56-12, And
It's this year.
He's 10-21 at UCLA for a grand total winning percentage of .323.
And has recruited worse than any major school in the Pac-12.
The stadium is always empty.
Yep. He gets out recruited by Oregon State.
Yeah.
It's got to be this year. They returned a ton of production. I think 19 or 20 starters from last year. That's not always a good thing, but in this case it is. They did lose Demetric Felton on offense, and I can never pronounce his name, Ogundiziwa across the line, who is all Pac-12 team. But they're pretty loaded. They're loaded at linebacker. Carnell Lake's kid is still back there, and I was at the game in 1993 when Carnell Lake intercepted Rob Johnson in USC versus UCLA, the winner to go to the Rose Bowl, and that was the last play of the game. So the Lake family has always basically run us over emotionally and physically and spiritually. They have so much coming back that there's no more excuses. A third-year quarterback, good wideouts. I mean, it's this year or nothing. They even got a kid from USC that was going to play in heavy rotation across the defensive line, a freshman who early enrolled that decided to go to the transfer portal and then went to UCLA across town, which is unheard of. So whatever they're doing pretty well, at least right now. But if he doesn't win this year, it's game over.
I think UCLA is going to be a school that's going to be hurt really badly by the name, image, and likeness thing coming out. And also, I think if Chip Kelly does not win this year, it is now his success at Oregon was a product of Nike and not a product of him.
And Mike Alati.
Yes. That whole trend, the Oregon, the uniforms, the hipness of it, he doesn't have that at UCLA. And I can tell you in that town, and Raj can speak to it, and Randall, you live in Southern California too, UCLA football is so far down the pecking order of attention. There's not going to be a lot of car dealerships that are lined up to sponsor the quarterback of UCLA.
Strangely, I had a step family member that got recruited by UCLA. And I always remember thinking that was a big deal. But his other offers were New Mexico, Colorado State, and UCLA. It wasn't like UCLA was recruiting on the same level as the other elite Pac-10 teams. Now, we've talked about Tennessee bad hires since 2008. I'm going to go back to 1996, and I want to read you this progression. And then one more question. Is UCLA football still relevant? Bob Toledo, 96 to 2002. Carl Durrell, 03 to 07. Rick Neuheisel, 08 to 011. Jim Mora Jr., 012 to 17. Chip Kelly, 18 to present. Since 1996, they've not been I guess Mora came close at one point, but you cannot hang your hat on any of those coaches. So the $1 million question, is UCLA football still relevant? Robbie, we'll give you the first tee at that.
You know what that sounds like to a certain Tennessee fan the same stuff that Tennessee has been doing. No, it's bad hire after bad hire after bad hire and recruits transfers. No, they're not relevant. They're not. Besides the ultimate uniform game when UCLA and USC wears their home jerseys against each other. No, they're not relevant. They're not at all. So no, I mean they're just not. Even when they tried to hire Chip Kelly, who was a NFL bust, Jim Mora, NFL bust, Neuheisel did well at Washington, who's an alum. It's kind of like the same thing Michigan's doing. At least Michigan was a once proud program. I guess UCLA was at some point, but no, they're not relevant. They haven't sniffed the Pac-12 championship in 15 years?
It's longer than that. I mean, they had one good team under Mora. I remember that went like 9-3, 8-10.
They went back to back 10-3. One year, 2013, finished up the rankings as 16. The next year they finished up number 10. They're 10-3 both of those years, but 6-3, all three losses in the conference. Finished at second in the year that they were technically the better team to Arizona, who was ranked behind them in the polls. I don't recall the 2013 team, but to answer your question, every time I think about this, I think about off the field reasons. The iconic baby blues, the fact that they're the Bruins, aside from Belmont, which doesn't have a football team, those are very unique things, color combinations. They play in the Rose Bowl, much like Tennessee. No one else has that color of barf orange or whatever you guys call it, but it's extremely unique. And I think, there's nothing worse than unoriginality, and Tennessee and UCLA provide that. Obviously Tennessee to a greater extent. But yeah, I mean, the last meaningful game was probably 7-8 years ago. It's, again, they're also relevant because of the fact that it's the only rivalry or only situation where two Power 5 schools are within the same city, 13 miles from each other. But, those are off the field reasons, if you will.
Yeah. And I will comment also, like, there's a difference between Tennessee and UCLA. Tennessee on a bad non-conference game can throw 85,000 people in the stands without trying. UCLA on their best game, maybe not the USC game, but if it's on let's say it's UCLA and Stanford, they're probably drawing 20,000 people, and it's a disgrace for that brand to not draw better in a city of 6 million people.
It is.
Same token, they are a victim of their own failure, if you will. Rarely are they the 12:30 game. It's usually a night game. It's Saturday in Southern California. Pasadena is beautiful. And that's another thing. Their home stadium that they play in is 20 miles from campus. It is probably the most difficult stadium to access and to get out of any that I've ever been to.
And they won't let cars onto the neighborhood. You literally have to get out and walk about a mile with like a cooler and everything if you want to go tailgate.
Yeah.
Trash the golf course, which, I think is wrong in its intention. But yeah, they have just not been relevant for years. And yeah, that's even a USC-UCLA game I went to like 5 years ago. It was raining. And, half my buddies, USC was a better team, but they were like, dude, I don't want to go sit in the rain with, and there were like 45,000 people there. It was embarrassing. And that's against their rival. Yeah, it's now or never for Chip Kelly and for the Bruin program. And this is the most returning talent they've had. They have a veteran quarterback, just skilled players galore returning, good offensive line and defensive line and linebackers. We'll see, but they're known for literally choking in one way or another.
The last sporting event I attended before leaving Southern California was a Oregon State UCLA football game. where I drove. And I'm telling you, I love UCLA. I love.
Talk about a short concession stand line.
Yeah. In my closet, there is one LSU shirt, about 3 UCLA shirts, and the rest of it's Tennessee stuff. But I remember walking to the stadium. I had no ticket. I had a friend with me, and I was like, somebody will give us tickets. I was confident. Somebody gave us tickets. We did crash the tailgate. But if 1 in 10 seats in that stadium was full at the time, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is they gave us like 2 upper deck seats. As soon as we kicked off, we ended up in row 2. And nobody said a word to us.
Nobody cares.
We was sitting on row 2 with, and you know how long those seats are, those.
Yeah.
From
if you're in the bench part.
Yeah, the 20 to the 20. I think I counted 6 people on the same row as we were.
It's pretty sad, dude.
That's probably a 45 stretch. So,
and quick
UCLA going to their campus though.
Beautiful campus.
UCLA is the most beautiful campus in the world to me.
I went to Poly Pavilion not too long ago. They've redone it. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. It is much nicer.
Yeah.
But the campus is beautiful. It really is.
Would they be better off having a 35,000 seat stadium on campus than they are playing in where they are?
Yeah, it's a public school though. The UC Regents there, whatever money they're going to extort from their students, it's not going to UCLA football. I mean, if you look around, Cal Strawberry Canyon is one of the oldest stadiums there is. USC's had a deal with the Coliseum.
True. Cal was the worst stadium I've ever been in.
It's pretty rough. But no, back to the point of UCLA, like I said, many of us, especially when the BCS came about and suddenly became conference supremacists and warriors and roasting the others, Tennessee was the only team that would consistently travel anywhere for a non-conference game. Much respect for that. They came out, and it wasn't just when UCLA was terrible when they scheduled it. I was at that game that Peyton took his first snaps. I think Todd Helton was the starting quarterback.
I was there.
Yeah, and I had free tickets, so I was like, why not? And but Tennessee was the only team, and then I remember LSU had played Arizona State when they were really down, I think in like 2010 or something, and they said it was like the first time in 40 or 50 years that LSU had ventured west of the Mississippi. Florida, very similar. And I'm like, it's sad to me that schools don't do that and see the reach. And how many guys did you guys pull from California after that type of exposure?
Yeah, that's why Fulmer did it all the time. Because that was back when Tennessee had very little in-state talent. And so we had to go out of state and go to the West Coast.
One of the greatest vacations, and this is my last point I'll make, for I think at the time $3,000, we flew from Knoxville to Las Vegas. Stayed in Vegas for 3 days or 4 days. Went from Vegas to Pasadena. Went to Disney World. And then that Saturday was the game. Went to the game. Then Sunday we drove back to Las Vegas. Went to the Grand Canyon. Did all that. Got on an airplane and flew home to Knoxville. I mean, I couldn't book what we did for the money I stayed, and I miss those kind of trips. We did one to Syracuse.
If you started in Vegas, you probably had $20,000 in your pocket the time you left.
I had less in my pocket than I started with. This was the drinking days still.
I was going to say, I didn't hear the Spearmint Rhino on there multiple times, so are we sure we got the full agenda and itinerary?
Yeah, and we stayed at the MGM, which I thought was nice too. A nice touch to stay in there. I love Old Vegas. All right, guys, moving on just real fast. And again, if you're just joining us, we'll get this all posted across the internet. We had some technical issues, so we're still trying to finish up the show. So stay with us. Robbie was the only guy that was a warrior and was here when he was supposed to be. But I was researching right before I fell asleep on the couch something. I want to read you the headlines from CBS Sports. Miami booster offers $540,000 in NLI endorsement deal to Hurricane scholarship football players. A businessman is offering $500 a month for every player scholarship to promote his MMA training facility. So basically his deal is I'm going to sign every football player that walks in the door for $6,000. They're all going to train at my facility. They're all going to promote my facility. They will wear clothing from my facility. And every player automatically gets $500 a month stipend. Is this the first of many of these type of deals? And can this deal go through? Robbie, we'll start with you. You seem to be the closest to the pulse of the NLI thing.
So I saw this headline also. I think this is a marketing headline more than a practicality headline because, one, the school still controls what gear you can and cannot wear. So Nike is paying a lot more to said school than this $540K gym or whatever it was. I think this is this guy I want to shoot the first shot and see what goes on. Now, I do think there's going to be better calculated efforts along these lines to actually do this, but it will be more on commercials. Hey, on the off season, come to the car lot, come to, if you're talking about, say, Knoxville, for instance. Hey, Pilot gas station going to do, autographs and this is where it gets a little shady and quite frankly very dirty. Nick Saban owns 10 Mercedes-Benz dealerships.
Yeah, he has.
Is he allowed to have players sponsor those things? So you're gonna it is gonna start very grimy. And this guy out of Miami is probably the first that's like, oh, you'll work out here. Well, so the difference is if a Miami football player gets injured at that gym, does that revoke their scholarship and then thus revoke the endorsements? So there's a lot of contractual things that are going to be worked out. And I don't know if these players can use this money to hire attorneys, hire agents. I have not got into that much of the weeds. I don't know about an agent, but I'm pretty confident a family can hire their own attorney that's not an agent without however you fund that's attorney-client privilege. And so I think that's going to be an avenue. And so, yeah, it's July 6th. This came in effect 6 days ago, however you count a calendar. No, this is a marketing ploy from this guy to booster his gym. I don't think it's going to persuade anyone to get to Miami, and the U is not back. They're the same old U that's floundering for this last decade they've been. So in a nutshell, I don't think this is a big deal. I think the future is going to look something like this, but it's going to be much more calculated and well thought out.
Dan Lambert in America Top Team is one of the sleazier organizations in MMA. So I do agree with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. Just based off his statement, I thought he was sleazy.
The rhetoric that he presented, you can tell he had done this before about, just wanting to help the kids out and improve the state of the program. And he hired an attorney regarding compliance, which if he's involved in supporting the MMA, he's probably been there before and had his wrist slapped or hand slapped, if you will. He also started not technically a nonprofit, but an organization called Bring Back the U, as we discussed. And that was basically entirely a fundraising effort that they were not going to make any money, but he would go to local businesses and other things and just generate money to give to the kids because of
sounds like a political operation.
Like it's like a PAC or something.
Yeah.
and I have too many Seminole and Gator fans that have been expletive on me. I want our team to be good again. This is within the new laws. Why not? And there's nothing that says booster can't do this as long as they are not supporting the institution or the athletic department directly. So I just think they found tons of loopholes here, and they found one. And this is probably going to become, this is stuff that before we had to keep on the DL, but right now they're the first to go out and just be like, hey, that's what we're having, this car wash, bikini car wash. So our starting linebacker can get a Corvette. That's basically it.
So one of the first, and we'll talk about Mr. King a little later too. De'Aaron King, the quarterback at the U, reported that he had signed one of the first agreements, and he signed a pair of endorsements for college humps, hauling, and junk, and moving Murphy Auto Group for around $20,000 to sell memorabilia. Some of the other ones, the first one signed was by a Jackson State player to endorse a local barbershop. Bo Nix is in and I think his is maybe the most legit one I've heard, Milo's Tea, which is a pretty substantial brand of drink. He signed an endorsement agreement.
Now, is that a sweet tea?
It's in the South.
Yeah, it is a sweet tea. They have an unsweetened version for the losers, but.
And Spencer Rattler has said.
Wait, what was Bo Nix? What was Bo Nix's contract or that sweet tea deal?
Bo Nix, I don't think it had. Let's see, it don't have numbers on it.
Okay.
The Rattler said that he had a significant deal coming. Evan Neal at Alabama said he'd been reached out to a gaming app company with a significant offer.
Rattler has a few deals. He also designed his own logo, and that it will become a brand, if you will, which is also a not against the rules. The latest was with Raising Cane's, but yeah, he is. I think that's a fried chicken outlet. He's been very popular.
Chicken outlet. It's the greatest fried chicken outlet in the history of the world.
Whoa, Gus's. I'm a big fan of Gus's in Memphis.
More fast.
Yeah.
We need to prepare for a fried chicken debate. We can't just be throwing this out here on a whim.
Yeah. I did participate. I ordered my King of the Backflip shirt from Drew Gilbert in the University of Tennessee. And that has been my first donation to the NLI Fund.
Well, Randall, let me just touch on something. So, King, the Miami quarterback,
yes,
is getting $20,000 from, what'd you say?
College Hunks Moving.
Okay, College Hunks. So,
all right,
this NIL thus far, and again, we're in the early stages of it, hasn't changed anything. Miami's still cheap as shit, and Auburn will still pay like the win. Would they give Cam Newton? I mean, what was that rumored amount? Yeah, $20K. You think you think one of their boosters are gonna flinch at $20K for a quarterback? I mean, no. That's console money for Auburn boosters, allegedly.
Rattler seems to be the guy that's most in desire, to Raj's point. Did they list anything else on there, Raj, that he had signed?
20K. He's got a good publicist. This was posted from Manhattan Beach, California. Obviously, he's an iconic looking dude with blonde hair and a mixed racial background. He developed the brand. They went public in the same announcement. They, of course, mentioned how they will be donating proceeds from any monies earned to help undeserved people and undeserved communities, the time is now. So it's the full nine when it comes to creating a sweet little brand with a snake, of course. He's doing the right things and saying the right things, and like I said, he's got a good publicist. That's evident, and I think he's a trendsetter, at least at this point.
So, last question on this subject, and I think this is what the rules meant for as much as anything. Will Ulmer, a kid you'll never hear of, play linebacker for the Marshall Thundering Herd, is now allowed to play in local bands, local venues, and receive money for it. There is some good things that can happen from this NLI thing if it's done the right way. Just this kid that wants to be a country music star for the next year will be the biggest draw in Huntington, West Virginia. So that's a good thing. Robbie, what are the good angles to the NLI thing?
On it the same way if I was in college and I wrote a poem or I wrote a rap song or I created a beat or a product, I can profit off of that independently of my academic scholarship. That's what it should be like. And also, yes, there's a video game that's going to be coming out again next year. And most of the proceeds, or some of let them collectively bargain. Y'all use our name, image, and likeness, and we're going to get a proceed of it. We're going to split it evenly, or whatever the union collectively bargains for. Those kind of things. But yeah, these gyms that are saying, "Hey, we'll give you money because we want advertising." That's exploit. That is no different than the NCAA exploiting these athletes. That's what they're doing. It is just, we are using you. Hey, you're the quarterback of said school. We're going to keep exploiting you for, hey, we'll get you the quickest, the cheapest. You don't have negotiating power. You can't hire an agent. You may not be hiring an attorney. What is your thought process as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old product? Are your parents signing you into contracts, into advertising deals? Like, there's a lot. You see the Britney Spears fiasco that's going on. Like, these kids that their parents enter into contracts and can be desperate, can be under leveraged. So there's a lot of shadiness that can be taken out of this. If the NCAA had a spine, a brain, or any working function to get ahead of something instead of waiting till June 30th at 6 p.m. to say, okay, we're good with this, when all these states are changing laws. They were so far behind, as they always are, and it's just dumbness on their part. And now the athletes can make money, but can also be suckered and in debt, and there's a lot that can go wrong with this thing too.
It's like, when California made weed legal, they didn't just say you can buy, kilos of it and whatnot. It was highly regulated. It was taxed up to a certain percentage. It was a well thought out rollout. And this seems like, as you said, with the NCAA, the opposite. Now, along those lines, UCLA hasn't really taken advantage as much from what I've read of where they are. But USC had developed actual staff to the new NIL, and Randall's point to music. A lot of kids love, all kinds of music, but many love hip hop as well. USC's got an academy for arts, technology, and business innovation founded by Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. There's no better city in the world if someone wants to break into certain industries, and they are using it, and it's scary. There's a lot of kids that are going to be led on to believe that this is the best place for them, for not only for athletics and academics, but for other reasons. And those reasons could be total BS. And eventually, that's the NCAA in a nutshell. They don't set the regulations prior to. They wait to see how badly they screw up. Then they hammer it down. And then things like the G League gets created and those types of things. That just absolutely zero forethought, which is unfortunate. And this is I agree with the NIL thing, but I've said from the start, same with Rob, that the lack of regulation is apparent, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
This may be the death knell to, like, in the Pac-12 to UCLA sports, because we're all familiar with California and how the state school system operates versus the private schools. The state schools do not care at all about athletics, and they won't fund stadiums. They won't fund things. They won't fund. So, like, USC may have a huge window here to not overtake, but to continue their historical dominance of Southern California.
Yeah, only Oregon can relate, and it's been USC and Oregon primarily for the last 15 years. But with Nike money and, promise a new shoe to be named after you with your own brand. Don't know the legalities of that. That's just an example. But the rich will get richer. And that's pretty much a fact. And we certainly won't see some of the smaller teams have those darling seasons, the Boise States or whatnot. I think that may sort of, create the class divide, widen the class divide, if you will.
Well, you look at Vanderbilt and, like, Arkansas. They're just collecting the SEC revenue money now, like, and that is a shot at Arkansas with the
Walmart.
Yeah, the Walmart money being there, and, like, they still won't be able to compete because who wants to go live in Arkansas when other teams can pay you something similar and you get more exposure?
So the question, though, is would a school, and this is one I thought of in particular, like Middle Tennessee State, a school that has 30+ thousand people enrolled, the largest school in the state of Tennessee, with a state-of-the-art music program, stand to be able to promote this and grow the brand in Nashville, where that, or is that not the right way to go with this?
Kid, the simplest answer I could give is 7-year-old can make 6 figures on YouTube. The world's changed. If you're good at music and you want to be an athlete and you want to promote yourself and you can get paid on YouTube, no, go where you want to play. Go where you want to do. You don't need a state-of-the-art. I mean, how much more advanced is MTSU than, say, University of Colorado in their music program? You can make music if you want to make music. Like, I just don't buy that. Oh, I need to be near Nashville. You don't. You're no longer trying to go somewhere to be found. You can be found, and you will be found if you have talent.
Right. Raj, any final thoughts on this subject?
Look at what we're trying to do. We're trying to be found in Chattanooga.
Hey, by the way, let me plug it. Dave Portnoy, we need a spot on Barstool. I saw you offered a spot to Tommy Cheese Balls, a guy that did one MTV show and does TikTok. Look, dude, I'm 55 years old, single father, and I've got more personality. I'm going to start tagging you in every video until we're on Barstool. Sorry, I had to get it out. Now, Raj, once we're on Barstool, we'll talk about money then. Raj, do you agree with Robbie?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. I think we've all said what needs to be said, and that is, I think we believe in the idea and the concept of the NIL and kids finally being rewarded for the exploitation of their likeness and athletic skills on the field or off the field and whatnot. But, the lack of regulation is frightening. And when you have boosters that can basically do whatever they want, in some of these towns, unlimited funds, that's not a good thing. And for a while, there was a lot of parity in basketball and in football. And, I think that's going to change. And being from a major market, even if that's going to be a huge advantage for us, I can't help but think that the class divide is just going to be widened, like I said, and it'll make the game overall less interesting and obviously more corrupt.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh, yeah. So, and this just example came out. I was just thinking about this. And this is where it can get very disastrous for these kids. And Raj, like the lack of regulation. So let's say I'm a freshman quarterback at Penn State, for example, just throw out of college. I sign on there, and I signed to Penn State because I say, hey, I'm a 5-star. I've been promised $100,000 in sponsorships, or whatever you're calling these things. My freshman year, okay, I get paid $100,000 up front. Well, I blow out my knee. Well, I have given this $100,000 to family, bought car. I've done that. Well, now I'm due another $100,000 the next year. Hey, I'm gonna take a loan out on this $100,000 for my prepayment. Well, what if my knee doesn't heal? Now I'm on a high interest loan, and now I'm all of a sudden, instead of a free scholarship, a free college education, I can be now in debt, $100,000, reoccurring interest. I can never get out of that if I don't make it pro. Right. And so without these safeguards and on legit business decisions, it can go very south very quickly for these kids that don't have financial advice and don't have these things at their disposal. And that's what worries me about it. They should get paid, but it should be regulated. And the NCAA dropped the ball by not doing it ahead of time.
There's an announcement that just came out of Knoxville. All the Tennessee football players, if you want autographs, please start at the Pilot between 7 and 11. They will be working the second shift. Tennessee football players, 7 to 11 at Pilot in Knoxville in the surrounding area.
Lord Haslam would never risk confusing a Pilot with a 7-Eleven. He would never use those hours.
Oh, that's true. That's true. 11 to 7 then.
Yeah.
We'll reverse it. All right, guys. We're going to move on. And we got about 30 minutes, and I want to give us enough time to deal with this. And I may be kind of opposite on this subject. And I just checked. We actually got broadcast tonight. So the Olympic Committee banned, I cannot say the young lady's name. I believe it's Sha'Carri Richardson, who qualified as an Olympic sprinter. Today, it also was announced that she will be left off of the relay teams, so she will fail to make the Olympic team in Tokyo. Miss Richardson's crime is THC. So there is a lot of the press saying, this is not an enhancement drug. Please, reconsider this. I went another direction, and I thought about our boy Josh Gordon, who was once the most promising receiver in the NFL, and just appealed within the last week to be reinstated. No one has ever accused Josh Gordon of not failing his drug test, I believe to the tune of 5 of them. That has got him a lifetime ban from the NFL. But it's always been for marijuana, THC. The argument is that it is not an enhancement performing drug. So is these organizations, the NFL being one, the U.S. Olympic Committee being 2, Major League Baseball, for God's sake, even the rumor was that the WWE tested for THC. Is it time for us to get past that rule? It's legal in at least 50% of the states now. Robbie, where do you stand on this?
So that's a complex question. is it time to legalize marijuana in states and sporting events? My answer is yes. With that being said, though, there's rules, and you know the rules. And if you break the rules, there are consequences. Whether it's a performance enhancing or performance dehancing drug, it doesn't matter. It's the rules, and they all play by the same rules. And so, yeah, when I first thought of it, when I first heard this, I was like, that is stupid. And then I thought, well, you know what? Well, then if you can self determine what the rules are and what's important or not, then why have rules? So like testing for weed is not a drug test. It's a stupid test. You know it's coming, and if you want to beat it, you can beat it. If that's all you're doing. And she didn't do it. Josh Gordon didn't do it. And so if you don't care that much about not smoking weed or your craft, then yes, I'm for the suspension. And I'm shocked that I'm even taking this position because I am the complete left on any drug being legal. Any of them should be legal. It should be illegal. But in a private corporation, a private company, you dictate the rules, and you can absolutely do that. And I'd have to take a drug test for my employer, and if I fail it, I don't get that job. It's the same as an Olympian, a baseball player, a football player. So yes, they set the rules, and if you want, you don't have to play NFL. You don't have to try to play in the Olympian, but if you do, then the rules apply.
I'm shocked. We actually are falling on the exact same spot in this, and I thought I would be in the minority by far. I'm very pro legalizing marijuana. I'm a person who suffers from chronic pain. That is, I would much rather be on marijuana legalized than what I do take.
And it should be legalized.
But if they are a set of rules, here's giving your set of rules, and it's on there, you need to use some common sense. Josh Gordon, at one point, I was told, and it's kind of urban legend, was told by his team, you're going to get drug tested blank day 30 days ahead of time because we don't want to lose you. You will be drug tested. He failed the drug test. What more can you do other than tell the guy when the drug test is and beg him to pass it?
Well, I think we've all either known professional athletes or known people that know professional athletes, and don't be twisted. They don't refrain from what the rest of us don't refrain from either.
Not.
And so, but they know what, there's a reason. Okay, let me put it this way. There's a reason why the NFL didn't miss a single game for COVID when the rest of the leagues went crazy trying to reschedule things. Because they know when the tests are coming, and they know,
yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to get too creative to figure out how they did that. And I'll shut up and let Raj talk.
Raj, let's hear your opinion of this.
I mean, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and that's not a pun intended there, stated that marijuana could be considered a performance enhancement. Could be. Sure, subjectively, it may make somebody feel less focused or more focused, and that could be an advantage. But, so could having orange socks. I don't see how that's the case. Quick side note, we live in the Bible Belt, and in Tennessee, marijuana is considered a drug, and drugs are threatening to the family unit, to morality, etc. But sports gambling and possibly throwing away your family's mortgage on a known addictive behavior, and I'm not saying any of us, but
are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to say something?
No, because you're not throwing away your mortgage. You're throwing away for you, it won't matter is my point. But, but for sports gambling to be legal here, it just baffles my mind. And sure, certain states are loosening, and this seems to be a process which sort of begins with medicinal, and then there may be some sort of decriminalization, like in Texas, where Sha'Carri Richardson's from, and then hopefully a legality. And you regulate, again, as we mentioned earlier, how much people can hold, without the distributive argument or debate. And you tax the crap out of it. I mean, California's generated billions, taxing at 30%. I mean, not to mention what it does in terms of, the illegal drug trade, et cetera, and sort of the reach of many of those organizations, theoretically, of course. Sha'Carri Richardson's from Texas, where, again, they decriminalized it now that if someone holds less than 2 ounces, it's a Class B misdemeanor. Which is a slap on the wrist. It used to be much worse. She said that she smoked because that's what helped her cope with the death of her mom, who died a week prior. They basically gave her a slight suspension and then initially said she'd be available for the relay and then took that away from her, which, based upon politics and those not knowing the situation and needing a scapegoat, if you ask me. She was the favorite to win in the individual event. What was it, the 100? She was a great personality. She could have been marketed like crazy. I don't understand it, because if you tested any sport, regardless of where it is, arguably in the world, but certainly in North America, I'd venture to say 70% of those athletes may test positive for marijuana. I mean, it's a very rigorous thing to be a professional athlete. And alcohol has consequences, literally and figuratively, whereas marijuana really does not, the day after, and can be very therapeutic, as Randall noted, pain or otherwise, anxiety, etc. I don't know the Olympics are a private organization, correct? Like, ironically enough, and they can set their own rules, but it just seems on some level ridiculously short-sighted and even hypocritical. It's a tragedy that she is at the peak of her athletic existence and she's being scapegoated. And I think that's bull.
Well, as we're having this discussion now, I've just seen the headlines and I read that she tested positive for weed and then she's disqualified. But was this a USA team expulsion, or was this a Olympic team expulsion?
I understood it to be the USA Olympic Committee.
Because I was gonna say, because like the Netherlands and like did they fall under the same marijuana testing policy?
We all go to Amsterdam, right?
Yeah, but I mean, because like if this was, I mean, I guess rules are rules, so maybe I don't change my mind. But if it's a USA policy that's stricter than the Olympic Committee, whatever they are, their policy, then I may change my mind and say, no, we're being stupid. Let's bring our best athletes. So I shouldn't have researched the UCLA football coach as much as I should have researched this issue.
It was suspension by the U.S. track and field.
Yeah, U.S. track and field organization.
So we could have brought her, and if she tested clean at the Olympic trials, we could have won.
I have more trouble with the relay deal because it was kind of like I thought she was going to be slapped on the wrist and miss her individual. And I thought the deal was done that she was going to be part of the relay team. But then that was kind of jerked out and under her. I didn't understand that.
Oh, no, so I'm on the flip side of that. I'm more okay if she wants to run individually and risk her own medal versus being part of a team. And if 3 people are negative and she costs them all a medal, I'd be more upset about that than her saying, hey, I'll do what's in my body and I'll try to control it and I'll run on my own. I like that model better.
And the testing agency is the USADA, who also is responsible for testing MMA fighters.
And that's what Team USA Track and Field said, and talk about name, image, and likeness. Sha'Carri Richardson went to LSU, like huge flowing orange hair. She, looks like Flojo. Man, she was a gold mine waiting to happen. And her family, for generations has likely been affected by this. She learned from a reporter that her mother had died. And then she came out and acknowledged it and said, she should not have been hiding. It was the shock of it all. There's no excuse, but it was USA Track and Field that tested her. And they said that circumstances do not matter when it comes to blah, 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 according to the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, et cetera, et cetera. It could be a slippery slope after that. I think it's all BS personally. It should be reevaluated. And that quote was even said, while USATF fully agrees that the merit of the World Anti-Doping Agency rules related to THC should be reevaluated, it would be detrimental to the integrity of the U.S. Olympic team trials for track and field if the USATF amended its policies following this competition only weeks before the Olympic Games.
Well, it's all pretty hypocritical when we're the same group that let Lance Armstrong go up there for a decade, switching blood between races and all that nonsense that he did, and no problem there.
I'm more concerned with Michael Phelps, who's been a prominent supporter of marijuana, and now I assumed during his career it was not tested, and that's the way he did it. Evidently, he would clean himself up prior to a competition. Be the only explain.
I've seen his diet regimen. I know he burns a lot of calories, but man, that kid can eat.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a good moment. We might have to come back to that one down the road, but I quickly want to get to our last subject, and then we'll do our better nuts and our final thoughts. But long show tonight. We started late, so everybody, thank you for being with us. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Evitt Pitching Academy. We've got a banner we'll run with his number on the bottom of it. If you have a youngster that is looking to get into baseball, please consider giving Trevor a call. 423-504-3198. Got about 10 years experience. And I mean, I'm old, but it wasn't that long ago I went and watched him pitch. So we appreciate Trevor and being part of this.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for the sponsorship. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We want to help him get a business off the ground. Our last.
We could tell our friend Blake about that. He has like 17 kids.
I know Blake's gonna keep him.
That's like 2 baseball teams and benches.
Yeah. I did tell him if he signed up with us now that Blake would be having at least 7 or 8 players. So I think we're going to walk another slippery slope here. And when I first put this on our list, I was like, oh, we'll do 5 minutes on good time story and then we'll move on. But and this may be even my paranoia coming up. Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals for the first time in 16 years. Chris Paul is probably the most decorated player that's currently in the NBA not to make it to a finals. It was huge news, and everybody celebrated, and I thought it was a great moment with his teammates. Where I've got to today in my research is Chris Paul is also the president of the labor union. The NBA has been having a ton of players, including LeBron James, the largest name in the NBA, complaining about the turnaround to the season. First of all, congratulations, Chris Paul. But if the president of your labor union wins the NBA championship, do you think he can then lead the charge that, hey, we don't need to play again? Or is this putting Chris Paul in a very, very kind of how do you criticize something and you just won? Is it him being hypocritical? So, first off, how big is this for Chris Paul to be in the finals? And then second, the question is, will this change his leadership of the Players Association? Robbie, I'll let you go first. I put a lot out there, so two different levels of the questions.
Well, so on the president of the labor union, he is that because he is so well liked amongst his peers and respected. So that's an elected position. And one of his best friends in the league is LeBron James, who is the most powerful person in the league. I think that this is a like we all thought it was a bad idea. I think we were all in agreement that them pushing the league up and playing it so quick was a bad idea. But it's a results-oriented decision. So if nobody got hurt, it wouldn't have been a bad idea. But because when people did get hurt, it was a bad idea. But I think everyone was in agreement, and there's votes. There are hands raised. There are tallies made to reflect back to, hey, this was not a Chris Paul decision. This was a union decision. I'm just the leader of that union that presents that to Adam Silver. So I think he's kind of protected. I think they're but at the same time, there's going to be some. Was there not enough All-Star break? There's going to be some pushback. Yes, I agree with that. But I think it's more so next year is going to be. They just want a championship team. They just want. Let's okay. Sorry. Let's assume they win. And in these two shortened seasons, Chris Paul's won one of the two. That's 50%. It's in his personal interest to push on and keep this cycle going because he's got a young team around him. And his peers are older and he can take some nights off and play where they can't. I'm happy for him. I think Chris Paul has been a dirty player at times. But I do like him. I think he's been a really good player a lot of the times, and so I'm rooting for him. Actually, there's no lose in this series for just a gambler and just I don't care who wins kind of person. Giannis can get his. Chris Paul can get his. I've never been in Milwaukee. I love Tempe. If they fly me out for a parade, I will root for Tempe.
I'm okay. I'll come over and eat in a sec.
But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think he's hated amongst. I think some fans hate him more than the players hate him. I think he's loved by the NBA players.
I agree. This is Chris Paul's. I can't believe it. 16th season in the NBA. It's crazy. Raj, what's your thoughts?
I was in college and we drove over to visit my roommate in boarding school, Alan Hyde. He went to Wake, and I drove to Knox, Wake Forest to see Chris Paul beat the number one North Carolina team. I can't remember who all was on that team. That North Carolina team was loaded. But that was when Chris Paul was there. So yeah, he and I are the same age area. So pretty young still, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, pretty young. People in my age area are in retirement. Exactly. Raj, what's your thought?
Chris Paul. Great player. Is he a bit whiny? Are there things I don't respect about his game? Sure. Feels like this year is fate. Perhaps karma for him just playing so hard and so well for so many years. I hate to say this, Phoenix is a balanced team. They remind me of like the old Sacramento Kings teams or the Portland Trailblazers teams from 10, 15 years ago. Just solid at every position, yet not spectacular. Chris Paul may be spectacular, but Booker is a guy that, he's a volume shooter. I don't think he's automatic by any means. He likes to think so, but, DeAndre Ayton has evolved. Jay Crowder, who's a journeyman, who I have no idea why. He's a glue guy, plays good defense. They're just a very well-balanced team. They were losing 2-1 against the Lakers in the first round, and the Lakers were a team that had no offseason at all, and they're old as you-know-what. Then Anthony Davis got hurt, and Phoenix won the series. They faced Denver without Jamal Murray, and another nice matchup because they had Ayton to basically go against Jokic, and they could pretty much double and triple team him because nobody else was going to scare that team. And they do play good defense, and they're well coached. Against the Clippers, it became a series. There was no Kawhi Leonard, who is arguably, aside from LeBron James, the best playoff competitor in the NBA in the last 10 years. And Kobe Bryant possibly being in there, despite his age. Now they get Milwaukee with Giannis at 50%. It seems like the stars are aligning. I don't want to take that away from Chris Paul. Again, he's just such a unique player, not only with his skill set, the fact that he's the nicest guy off the court, that everyone respects him, but yeah, he's dirty as hell. Just like John Stockton. But in the NBA, you have to be very intelligent to be dirty, because in order to get away with it, you have to be respected by referees. For me personally, Chris Paul in 2011, when he went from New Orleans to the Clippers, the deal was done for the Lakers. Oddly enough, the big three in Miami had just happened before that. Dan Gilbert, the whiny Cleveland owner, among others, said this would be too good of a super team. With basically all the Lakers needed was that and Kobe and Powell, and they were pretty deep.
Oh, that cost Kobe 2 championships.
Yeah, at least. Because those two together wanted to play together when they were on Team USA. When Kobe doesn't have to handle the ball, and Chris Paul is the best point guard in the NBA in the last, 15 years at least. He's just so smart. He gets the ball right where you want it when he needs to shoot and score, like he did in Game 6 the other night. That was your bet my nuts was the Clippers were a 1-point favorite against the Suns. The Suns boat raced them, and I took Phoenix, and Chris Paul just decided it's on me. And instead of 40 assists, he scored 41 points because he can. And he's one of the few guys that can do that, but he would rather get his guys involved and make his team better. So to answer your question overall, he's definitely deserving of a ring, but this year there's been a lot of easy paths. But like I said, maybe the stars are aligning, and I would be happy for him. It wasn't his fault. Dan Gilbert was a whiny, and David Silver, no, not Silver, the one prior. Not Adam
David
Silver. Stern. He's just the worst. Was such a hypocrite, easily influenced and motivated by the simplest things. It's not Chris Paul's fault. He's an amazing basketball player. That's the bottom line. He makes other people better. But yeah, well, I think that there won't be an asterisk per se, but man, talk about a road. It's pretty easy. Flip side being last year against a good Houston team, he had no one on OKC, and I think they took them to 7, and it was pretty much all because of him. A Hall of Famer, great player. I predicted and bet on Phoenix at the beginning of the series that he would get his ring. And, I'm not overjoyed for it. It's not Peyton Manning winning his first ring, but, it's just nice to see. He's a good, well-respected dude that helps out the community and plays good basketball.
Up 15 as we speak.
Yeah, I'm sure they're already crushing him. And Giannis is playing, correct?
He is playing.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, well-balanced team.
So I just to jump in here, I heard it was on PTI, and Kornheiser had a great idea, and I completely agree. If you're Milwaukee, why would you play Giannis in games 1 or 2 when you can lose both of them? And all you got to do is win one game in Phoenix and get him completely healthy. Who cares if you're in 0-2? You got 2 home games, and then just sneak one of the last 2 in Phoenix. Get him healthy. A unhealthy or limping Giannis is not going to help.
I don't think they're good enough to do that.
And
who's to say 1 or 2 games is going to make him feel 100%? It looked like he had a knee injury. He wasn't Paul Pierce. didn't get carried off to the locker room in a wheelchair and come back 14 minutes later. Real time, game time, it was like 3 minutes later. But I mean, who's to say? I mean, that's just a strategy that
I've never
the risks far outweigh the benefits.
I still, even when I see Paul Pierce on ESPN, I'm like, I just can't get over that moment. He just, you can't respect somebody after that.
Ever. And he's from Inglewood, like we've mentioned before. But he also went to Kansas, the first from that area to do that. Not much respect from that area or from other players. But back to Chris Paul, he is the opposite. Players love and revere him.
Giannis's stat line through 3 quarters: 22 minutes played, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and 14 points. So 12 rebounds says to me that he's fairly healthy. I don't know if he is. The 14 points probably says he isn't, but we'll see.
It says to me that Brook Lopez doesn't move very well. Ayton is a more slick big man, and Brook's probably putting a body on him, leaving boards for Giannis, who's still the most athletic player in the league and can do it all. But I'm not watching, and that's likely a rationalization, so I didn't mean to contradict you. But
what bothers me is they're down by 13 right now in the fourth, and they still have him in there. Get him off the court. You're not going to win.
Yeah. Ayton has 16 boards at this point.
And I love the NBA. I didn't even know the finals were going on. Now, that being said, I love this show, and I forgot it was going on. But this show is way up the rankings for Phoenix and Milwaukee, and the NBA knows it. I'd be shocked if these weren't the lowest ratings
this
of
is
all
the
time.
NBA's worst nightmare. Phoenix and Milwaukee.
Worst nightmare.
Do you hear that, Presidente? Barstool. Barstool. I need a contract.
Talking about Barstool, though, Portnoy is basically us, like a bunch of dicks that like to drink beer and talk and be dudes. He's brilliant as a marketer.
Hey,
he expanded that brand,
hey, I'll tell this. I can tell him. I understand how he paper-handed it. I'm still diamond-handed it, but I'll give him a break. He can buy back in. He can still diamond-hand GME. It's all good. I'm not going to attack him, bro. Paper-handing it. A lot of people on Twitter did, but I forgive him.
The irony being, he can't bro it out anymore now that he's worth like $500 million. Like,
yeah,
that's the opposite.
I just feel like a single dad that's halfway talented deserves a chance. And I think he'd feel sorry for me. All right, guys, we got to get to the.
That's the way to earn it. Sorry,
I'm still rolling with my last week bet your nuts. The Braves have went on a 4-1 run and have been swept by the Pirates.
Yeah, I've got you up $54 right now.
Yeah, well, we lost today. I think I'm down.
Oh boy.
So my bet your nuts is double up on the Braves tomorrow at 12:35 versus the Pirates. 2 nuts on the Braves tomorrow.
Tough schedule though, man. Tough schedule.
No way the Pirates.
You start doubling down, you're in trouble.
Way the Pirates sweep the Braves.
You don't double unless
I could go.
You know what the dealer's got.
First to last and bet your nuts.
Or last to way last.
I could be in a Robbie place. I'll be picking NASCAR trying to get 2 wins.
Hey.
That's hard, man. That's one out of 50. Yeah. I respect that.
Robbie. Mine is the Braves money line, and I don't even know who starts tomorrow.
I like it. Reckless speculation.
Reckless gambling. And I've already bet it. Before we come on the air, I bet it.
All right. So I like to live bet on the air. So we haven't got much feedback about, oh my gosh, this guy's killing it on NASCAR. So I need to feel like I need to explain it a little bit better.
Okay.
Please.
So there's 3 bets in my opinion today, or for Sunday. I'm trying to go to Atlanta if I can get any friend to go with me. I have a friend here in Randall. Raj on the West Coast, he can't go. But if you want to go to the race, I'm down to go. But anyways, so
if I didn't have
favorite.
I answered the text. I want to go.
All right, so the favorite in the race, which wins most of the time, is Kyle Larson. Again,
is he okay?
Plus 225. He was in the lead on Sunday until he got bumped in the rear and wrecked. Kyle Busch is plus 750. So notice the favorite plus 225. So his second favorite plus 750. The one after that is plus 800 in Chase Elliott. But again, that gets us to our teams. Two of those three are Hendrick Motorsports again. So two of the top three of that team is plus 115. So my bet your nuts, because I don't want people to lose. I want people to win, is going to be Hendrick Motorsports again. So either Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, or what's the other guy's name? I forget his name all the time. Bowman or William Byron. One of them is going to win. So we have two of the top three and then two randoms to flow in for a plus 115. So I'm going Hendrick Motorsports plus 115. But kids, if you want to get more, if you want to get greedy, Kyle Law plus 225. That's a bet that he is so far more favored than the second racer in this race that I'd put money on him too. In fact, I'm gonna double down. I tried to parlay Larson and Hendrick Motorsports, but I couldn't because of the same group. But either one of those, but officially the bet the nuts is Hendrick Motorsports again to win this weekend.
Nice. And you researched it, unlike somebody just going, the Braves can't get swept. Double down. All right, Rod.
I think this is a poor man's NBA season. I said it before. I said at the beginning of the Western Conference Championship that Phoenix was going to win the title. Again, they remind me of very well-balanced NBA teams from years past, teams like Phoenix and Portland that probably would have won multiple championships if not for running into buzzsaws. But there are no buzzsaws left. Even with Giannis, they can defend pretty well. They're well-balanced with an amazing point guard. They have a knockdown shooter at the 2. And when you're a shooter, probably the best point guard in the league, one of the best in history to have next to you is Chris Paul. Jay Crowder does the dirty work. He defends. He can extend and shoot the 3. Same with Mikal Bridges, a dude that has a pretty high percentage from outside. Finally got DeAndre Ayton, the most athletic center. I mean, the Warriors tried to catch the same lightning in a bottle with James Wiseman, but Ayton's clearly a much better player, even though it's early for Wiseman. He's a walking 2020 guy almost. Haven't seen that since Garnett, and I think tonight he's got 18 and 16. In short, they're so well balanced. The bench isn't great, led by the Camerons, Johnson and Payne. Darich is there, but I looked at Jay Crowder tonight, a guy who's over 7 or something from the field. He's plus 16 on the floor. They got mad chemistry. I predicted them initially in 6. I almost went 7, but now I'm literally thinking 5. So my bet your nuts pick will be Phoenix in 5, 6, or 7. I'll go with 6 and stick with 6. That's my bet your nuts pick. But it would just be on Phoenix winning.
What are the odds on that?
I don't know on them winning in 6. I literally was thinking they'd win in 5, but the NBA, I hate to say this, but this series is bad enough as it is. They needed to go late, so I'd say 6 or 7. But you can.
I'm trying to pull it up. Hold on. So,
yeah, please.
So you said Phoenix in 6?
Yeah.
Plus 450.
What are the other odds? Phoenix is favored, right?
Yeah, but Phoenix, like the exact 6 games is plus 450.
What about in 7?
Plus 400.
What about Bucks in 7?
Plus 650.
And last one, Phoenix in 5?
Phoenix in 5 is plus 260.
So that's the favorite at this point.
Phoenix, the sweep is plus 500.
Well, I mean, it was 4 something for 6 and 260 for 5, which is the one I was thinking that I was too chicken to pick it. Wow. So they are favored based upon Vegas to win the series in 5, which would be great for the NBA.
Raj, this is what you call doing research for a show you know is coming up. So I can't read any of it, but I try to do research.
There's Randall using old mail. I didn't even do as much research, and I still obviously I forgot about
just showing
what
up
day it was, but
talent. Just pure talent, just being like, hey, I'll just show up and do what I want to.
All right, guys.
Natural, you can't help it.
I can't believe we went over and started late. So, has anybody got any final words before I go eat my actual very cold dinner tonight? Of course, it's cold, but I fell asleep doing research.
Well, hopefully this time next week I will be reporting back after my NASCAR experience at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Hopefully I can get someone to go with me. I need better friends. But in the meantime, if not, you guys are all welcome for your winning bet, and hope you're placing and betting big because I'm delivering winners on a niche sport that is easy to bet on.
So says you. Pretty excited. My little one is a big Dodger fan now. He can name numbers and players even when they're not in their jerseys. And he's like, oh, that's AJ Pollock on some show he watches on YouTube. I'm like, oh, really? I just saw a white guy with brown hair that looks like a baseball player. But we're going to Dodger Stadium for the first time in his life, and he's more excited than Disneyland the coming weekend against Arizona. So very excited about that. And of course, I'll take the Dodgers in any game that I attend, possibly in a sweep. But the last thing I want to say is free Sha'Carri Richardson. I think that's ridiculous, man. Like, I get it, but I get it based on antiquated 1950s perceptions and rationalizations and vindictive statements, whereas, this is a lovely lady who's worked her tail off the entire time, loses her mother, and learns that abstractly through a reporter, and suddenly is tested, and then said that, okay, we're just going to make sure she doesn't race her best event, but she can do the relay. But then after the backlash from that, another knee-jerk political reaction kicking her off. I think it's silly. I mean, who are we trying to prove anyways? It's Olympic politics, and it's highly unfortunate.
My last words for the night is we have a date, August the 24th, for a football preview show. We have 2 locations, which one of them, our preferred location, will never confirm. So by next weekend, if you'll join us, with or without a certain downtown restaurant, we will be announcing plans for a special edition where we will all be in the same room and maybe some guests, probably a lot of guests. But with COVID dying, we could actually have people in the room with us. I expect we'll get a drop in from Brandon Chain, which he's got a new show starting on the network, yet to be named. But I did like Stretch the Chain starring Robbie Davis. I thought that was ironic in it.
Wait, was that next week?
The 24th of August.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm out till the 14th. Stretch the Chain. I thought it was a reference to chain gang or the handcuffs the foot cuffs that Robbie's worn a few times.
Hey, Randall, can we do a August 29th Sunday morning special to recap the fantasy football draft?
Yes, we will. The 24th will proceed our draft, which we will have every member of the league is invited to either call in or personally drop in and make their case to why they win the league. Then on the 29th, we will recap our draft and we will laugh about our dragging. I will not draft my declaration today is if you cannot soberly draft, I will not draft you a player this year. And if Ross drafts anybody a player, I'm breaking his fingers. So if you pass out your team auto draft, kickers and defense till you wake up.
So I've thought about this today. I was driving around. I've been anti-time clock forever, but I think we need a 30-minute time clock.
We need something. Because last year, I won't say no names, criminal. I ended up with one of the better teams in the league because he was the first one to pass out. And a certain West Coast person drafted his team, and the dude ended up with a monster team.
Others helped, including Jeff and yourself to a lower extent. But then when you realized his team was legit and legitimately better than most, you were like, oh, shit, I can't do this.
When I looked up and he had Aaron Rodgers and Kyler Murray on the same team, and I'm like, and then two stud receivers, and I'm like, I'm stopping, man. But yes, Robbie, I think that is a wonderful idea.
30 minutes, that's crazy, dude.
Well, no, but it's a compromise between, like, for me, I'm anti-timer ever, so that's long enough for me to enjoy a pick, but then people will go faster.
I mean,
I
first 5 rounds, you should have 5 minutes. Because there's nothing but talent on the board.
See, this is what happens. This is where we get into these debates. No, 5 minutes is way too quick. 20 minutes.
What if you get 30 minutes and everybody else gets 5 minutes?
That'll work.
I will be willing to make that sacrifice. You get 30 minutes a pick. Everybody else.
I like to think things through. You can't just hastily make decisions.
It takes time to think things through.
I don't think there's another person in the league that could think things through. Most of the time, they're looking for their bottle, their draft list. I'm serious. There was a point that I watched someone look for their draft list last year for 73 minutes. It was in their back pocket.
Wait, have we explained to our audience that we have a mandatory in-person draft? Like, there is no internet selection. There is no best available. It is strictly what you know, and everyone must be there live or else you can't play. But that's what makes this league different than so many others, or almost every other one is, you can just hit auto draft. You can say best available.
There's a waiting list to get in, and once I got in, I'm again from the West Coast, been in hundreds of leagues, started my Yahoo profile in 2001. This is by far the most fun league I've ever been in. And, ironically enough, the premise of this show, at least in my eyes, is between picks, how just hundreds of conversations are going on while some idiot stumbles to the board, especially in the later rounds. And that's really how I view this, is we often end up in conversations on God knows what, generally sports related, but we're all there for a common purpose and a common ground, and the vibes are always positive. Well, mostly positive. It's just it's a super, super positive day that I look forward to every year. And that's also because of the league and the members that have the right amount of dedication to it, to the league and the cause itself, but also to each other. So, I feel bad. Some of my boys at home have given me stuff for this, but it's by far and away the best league I've ever been in.
What league could you have a rap battle break out in the middle of the draft And
Well,
also,
I don't know if you want to be public about Rob in the rap battle. But Rob will do anything, especially if you challenge him.
Well, when someone says, "How would you describe your fantasy football league?" and I said, "Well, imagine if you took 12 individuals and they're all
Sounds
friends,
like the real world,
but none of them trust each other for a second, and there's no trades. There's fighting for the waiver wire. There's cheating scandals and everything. There's backdoor dealings. It is literally like the most paranoid league I've ever seen."
I single-handedly last year took you off of the lowest level of the scum and replaced you for a period of time. So I was really proud of that.
Oh yeah.
They were texting about whether I should even be in the league because I was pulling some moves. But I was I was so proud.
As soon as a proposed trade notification gets announced, get ready for 500 Lenny texts coming at you. Be like, this is bullshit. This is not acceptable.
Even the most fairest trade in the world. Oh, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
How could you trade the number one player for the number two player? And they
I'm like Lanier, you don't even know who these players are.
Yeah. And he won the league and he don't have a TV.
Yeah.
It's also a league that there is no strategy. Nothing. Because you could wait 8 rounds and for the perfect pick, and then somebody to fall into the table and randomly grab your guy and stick it on the board, one pick in front of you. There's no.
Because there's no live tick or best available, you can't really prepare. There's no use doing mock drafts for our league because in mock drafts you can see patterns, but in ours you never know. I mean, someone criminal is going to jump up and smack Aaron Rodgers on number 3, and then it just throws everything bananas.
The greatest moment though is when we pick players that are retired. Go ahead, Raj.
No, I was going to say, like, number one, Randall, what you said about no strategy and trying to wait for a guy in the 8th round, that is strategy. And you probably should have picked him in the 7th. And maybe that's why you end up middle of the pack. And you're a guy that overthinks things. You obviously know your stuff. You should be in the top 3 or 4 every year. But things, you do whine a little bit. But, like, just kidding. Things do happen, and sometimes I'm like, damn, this guy has horrible luck. But then again, you can't pick half the Atlanta Falcons team and wait long to get well. Generally, you wait for the gems and the picks, and sometimes they're gone, and then you get pissed off. And you're this sober guy.
Well, I just think.
I mean, that was a bummer. I mean, yeah, your team would have been legit if he was healthy, obviously. But that's fantasy football.
Raj, I just think Randall's playing chess while we're all playing checkers. Randall's got this big bottle of champagne. He's got this big bottle of champagne ready to be popped.
Oh.
As soon as he wins the championship, he's like, I can't ever drink again, and so he just won't ever win.
I hope he and I live to see that.
Annalee knows that if I die and still hadn't won a league, that she has to continue in my spot until somebody in this family wins the title.
Hey, if it can happen for Chris Paul, it can happen for anyone.
Yes. And the fact that Criminal made the finals last year is still mind-boggling to me.
With our team, yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, it's been a great we'll talk next Tuesday. Raj, it's on Tuesday. Even if you're
on Tuesday. I hope to be broadcasting from the beach. Right now I'm at my sister and brother-in-law's beautiful house in Tustin. But hopefully I'll be closer to the beach, and if that's the case, I'll be ready to go.
And you can finally go eat now. They've been waiting for you.
Yeah, I'm actually a late eater anyways. I'd rather get my buzz on first, being old. If I eat now, it's just nap time. So,
Robbie, you will find somebody to go to the race with you. I'm confident.
Hey, I may a weekend by myself won't be bad either.
Where's the race at?
In Atlanta. Nothing sounds fun like middle of July in Atlanta, right?
Hey, dude.
Nah. All right.
Hey,
like Randall trolling for tickets years ago, you can find someone that wants a free ticket.
I gotta lose weight somehow. Might as well sweat it out.
I'm going to see Seven Dust at the Signal in a couple of weeks, and I literally dread standing that long through 3 bands. That's how fat I am right now. I was at the time, I was like, I really don't want to stand up for 3 hours. And he was like, that might be a sign you need to lose weight there, big boy. So, all right, guys.
I don't blame that.
We'll talk to you next week. And, hey, everybody, sorry for being late.
See you guys.
Me too.